Talk in the Town is a Nagrika initiative which aims to identify and find change makers and voices in small and mid-sized India,
Mm.
mid-sized cities in India, where people have uh, taken the mantle of bringing policy to people, where people themselves have identified that the change starts from them, and they are uh, taking making efforts to bring more people together, bring communities together to tackle with several challenges which a lot of our small and mid-sized cities face. And these are not isolated examples, it's just that we hear about them less. But these are the examples that that hold the hope for small town India, which have the potential of bringing a large scale change, starting with the communities themselves and then holding a beacon for others to follow. And our effort is to basically identify and amplify some of these initiatives and to bring the perspectives, the challenges, and the aspirations that these efforts are facing, and share it more widely. And today, in this episode of Talk in the Town, we have Sukhprit Kaur, who is the founder trustee at Aranya Outreach, which is based in Mysore,
Yeah.
and it runs programs and activities to advance awareness, education, and action in an area which I think is much needed to be put a spotlight on, and that is the area of environmental education and wildlife conservation. Um, she has been also a freelance environmental educator, a content writer, and has been working on creating curriculum which linked to activity development. I think she spent a lot of time with Center for Environmental Education as well. And I would not take more time, and I'll ask Preet herself to introduce herself first, and then after that we will start a conversation about Talk in the Town. So thanks,
Yeah.
Sukhprit, and over to you.
Thank you, Tarun. It's actually wonderful being here too. And you know, being able to talk and share what our experiences have been. And very briefly, I would like to introduce myself. I have about like 20, 22, 23 years of experience in this field. I've been working with environmental education. Majority of the work was done when I was with the Center for Environmental Education. And beyond CE also, we have continued our efforts, and more lately, I mean, we did work at CE and also beyond used to, consolidate our efforts. But beyond CE, the efforts have been consolidated more in the formation, through the formation of the Aranya Outreach Trust, which we did like a couple of years ago. We registered a couple of years ago, but we had started our work a little earlier itself. Again, of course, as you mentioned, it's an extremely important area which needs to be addressed. But unfortunately, it is also an area which is highly neglected, and we don't understand. We don't understand the importance. We somehow feel that we are. We are not part of this environment. I mean, I get that across very strongly because we're not considerate in our actions. We're not considerate in the way we think because we do not think environment is a priority. At some point of time, I guess we are going to get it back. Only when a calamity happens, it strikes us that, oh, okay, something is not right. But like the whole COVID pandemic was such an eye opener for people. We went 2 years of a lot of restrictions, and a lot of things were sorted out. But once the pandemic is over, we are back to square one. We're doing everything the way we did, probably with a bigger spirit, more overspending. Oh, we haven't done anything for 2 years, so let's do something. So that's basically, I feel, is a problem. We as a species are not realizing our interconnectedness with nature, and that is where we are actually failing, is what I feel.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think the uh, during COVID, I remember the number of times people talked about that you know, nature is taking back what it had given away, and the vistas of Himalayas visible from as far as Roorkee and Saharanpur, and now we are hearing about terms like revenge tourism, where people are that we were bound for 2 years and now we're just gonna take everything back. And you correctly said that as a species, we are not seeing this interconnectedness. Uh,
Yeah.
I will talk, I think maybe we'll build on that in a bit uh, through your work that you're doing as Aranya Outreach. But before that, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about you and the city you are in, the connection that you have with Mysore, and uh, how, as a as a citizen in the city, you've been interacting.
Yeah. So basically, I've also grown up in Bangalore, but being very close to Mysore, and we did travel quite a bit to the city. And then I actually did my master's here, and we did start working a little on one particular lake, which is very close to the university. And then we also used to, and then post my masters, I also happened to be married back into the city, and we've been coming in, and we used to, since we were living in Bangalore, we did come in and go, like literally every weekend we would come back and go back to Bangalore for. But the last couple of years, I have been back in the city. I am located out of Mysore now, and been working here for both through Aranya Outreach as well as other freelance activities that I picked up. So as a background, that's how it has been. That's one of the connect with the city, and of course it is as you also mentioned, you are working with smaller cities. It is a smaller city. It is a very it's an easier city to negotiate. People were very connected with where they were living. The culture is very much there, and since it was a smaller place, it was easier to negotiate traffic. It was easier to maintain it. But what has happened of late is, yes, there is a lot of boom. There is a boom in terms of course, the proximity of the city to Bangalore. A lot of people are, wanting to move out and come and settle down in Mysore. So we are seeing a lot. We are seeing a huge real estate boom in the city. Areas which were earlier not, uh, not really where people lived, are actually. You see a lot of housing and a lot of other activities which have come up in the city. So the traffic has also gone up a little. That's one aspect we have to kind of deal with. Otherwise, as far as my education and my experience is concerned, I have been working in the sector. My work was my study. My study also involved a master's in environmental sciences, and then I have actually when I at my first area of work, or first place I really formally joined was Center for Environment Education, and it was a great experience. It was great working with children. That's been my forte. I worked through teachers with the school education system. And for 18 years, I did develop a lot of content. We worked with CBSE schools, we worked with state board schools, and so basically government schools as well as private schools. So the kind of the work we did was basically we would take on projects. We also worked CSR over the last couple of years in CSR, actually became like a major important activity, and companies had to take up one particular area in which they really wanted to work. So when it came to when it came to environment, a lot of companies also took on working with schools through us. So some of them understand, some of them understood the importance of education. So sometimes people feel working with the environment is like, do some kind of work in terms of infrastructure work. It could be like infrastructure, providing a good environment-friendly infrastructure to schools. Sometimes it is even painting the school buildings with lead-free paint, and providing them furniture became some of the action areas for some of these companies. But where we what is more important is the education aspect, and CE stood by that. So the fact that people need to be educated, people need to be made aware about this importance, because just changing the infrastructure is not important. You need to be aware. You need to actually implement your action. If you have a good infrastructure but you do not have the awareness to actually or the inclination more than the awareness. I'm also not saying people are not aware anymore. People are aware, but people are not inclined to uh, doing something which will make, because it is an effort. Everything is very easy today. We got very simply speaking, we were able to get vegetables. We did carry our bags to the market. Even us as, as children, as we have grown up, we have done all that. But today, what is happening? The ease of packaged stuff and all that, which is available, is just not. So you don't consider. You don't want. You feel it's like an effort taking a bag and going. The ease of getting a bottle of water against carrying your own bottle of water is what, that the fact that everything is so easily available is a hindrance to our work. So educating, creating awareness, and getting people uh, to behave. So behavioral change is extremely important, and then behavioral change comes across when we are constantly working. That I feel is something which has been lacking and really requires a lot of work to happen. And environmental education is an area of work which requires people's behaviors to change. I know we need to work for the environment. I know the environment is deteriorating. I know there is climate change happening, but unless we are wanting to take action for the I know, we're not going to really be able to do it. We're not going to be able to achieve much.
True. So
That's where I feel is the lacuna.
that's absolutely, I think, spot on. I was just reflecting when I was reading about Aranya, and environmental education seems like a very common mainstream word. But when I think about, at least in my lifetime, when I think about its applicability, and I think it's true even for a lot of us who grew up in 80s and 90s, that at least in school, the only place where some kind of environmental education came in was through schools. That also in a very fringe way, where either you celebrated for one day, did a Van Mahotsav drive, or did some cleaning of the shrubs, or did some token plantation. Then in colleges, by the time we reached colleges, I think when I was an undergrad, at that time, environmental education was a supplementary or a optional course. And only, I think in last 10 years, 15 years, it has become, at least in India and in Asia in large, that environmental sciences, environmental engineering, and a lot of these courses have become mainstream courses. So your focus has been schools, and it is a big challenge to kind of mainstream the idea of environment and environmental conservation and the aspects related to conservation of environment. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about this idea, that because it's definitely the most appropriate place with impressionable young minds who can take in so much. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about what you do through schools and
yeah. So Tarun, actually, as you said, like I know there was an order by the Supreme Court in 2004 which made environmental education a mandatory subject. Yeah. And it said that all classes across all schools across different classes and in college level, environmental education has to be introduced. But again, okay, it has to be introduced. But how you go about doing it? So if it is an aspect where you're just talking about the environment through a textbook concept, but not getting children to act upon it. It is not really a sufficient. Personally, I don't think it's a sufficient way of conducting environmental education. So even when we dealt with schools and colleges, like you said, doing a mere Van Mahotsava day observation, or doing doing a plantation, or observing some particular environmental friendly day, all this is fine. But this is not really going to take us a very long way. This is an example which I was discussing with a friend some time back, and I understood that the school wants to observe an environmental week. So in the environmental week, they collect different stuff. It could be in different forms, and sometimes they might end up collecting electronic waste. Sometimes they might end up doing other stuff. But when it comes to the school policy, when it comes to they want their children to change their notebooks every term, irrespective of whether there are blank pages left in the notebook or not. So it's a very simple thing. But unless we, as a school policy, understand that yes, if the book has pages and if the child is going to continue using the same, you're obviously doing the same subject through the year. So why do you want to change the notebook even if there are pages left in it? irrespective of fact whether that particular term comes to a close or not. Unless we understand it, and unless the school policy, unless the school management really imbibes on this, it is going to be a very difficult thing to. So that's basically what I feel is the issue. We have to look at, even when we're doing environmental education at any point of time, like I said, it is important to change people's behaviors. And the possibility of changing behaviors is there only if we get them to start taking action. And if the student is acting in one particular way, if the student is acting positively and does not get that support, when the school management is not supporting their decisions, like the example that I gave, then again the child is confused. The child is not sure what the child should be doing. Your home is teaching, maybe your parents are teaching you one way of leading a very environmental conscious life, and maybe your school is giving you a very different example, or it could be the other way around. The school is giving you a very good example and actually holding your making you understand the importance and actually getting you to start being very conscious of the environment. Your actions are in a very positive spirit, but at home you're not getting that support. So unless we are able to find a support for our work uh, uh, from different formats of where we are doing it, it will be difficult. It will be difficult because in their heads there is a lot of confusion in terms of what is right and what's wrong. So the right practices have to be consolidated for them in different places that they are actually doing. So when you visit, for us, like when you visit, say a common area in the city, generally these areas tend to be very dirty. Unfortunately, sometimes they're clean, sometimes they're dirty, but it's not our responsibility. We feel it's not our responsibility to keep it clean. So that's the mistake we are making. So unless we are actually driven in that way, unless our whole thought process and our actions are driven in that way, we'll have to keep working on environmental education.
So, in almost 2 decades, and you've been in some form or the other in this realm of environmental education, and have been dealing with the kind of issues, this kind of dichotomy in theory and in practice, at home and at work, especially for children. So, do you and you also have kind of traversed between time, like starting maybe 20-25 years ago when environmental education was, and you've seen these developments where the Supreme Court making this mandatory, and now seeing it a little bit more, becoming a little bit more mainstream in different parts of the country as well. And then you also been in a larger city like Bangalore, and now you've been in Mysore as well. Do you observe a difference in terms of the sensitivity of citizens, including young citizens with whom you've been working, with relation to environment? Is there a difference in terms of the city size that you may have observed, which are completely based on your experience in this much time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel there would probably be a more difference in the urban setup and a rural setup, in terms of even children and in terms of also people. So just looking at initially at an urban and rural setup, probably in a rural setup, maybe we would feel at point of time that pollution may not be an issue. But I do remember working with the school, and one of the topics that they did choose to work on was waste management. And I was a little surprised why would they want to do waste management? Biodiversity was such a great thing around them, and they could have easily done it. They did biodiversity, but they also chose to work on waste management. And when I was talking with them, I realized that waste management, unlike in an urban setup, where you have the Nagrika or you have the other corporation, offices in place, you have a system of waste management. You do have a system. Somebody is coming, at least in our cities, the cities that I have lived in, people come to your doorstep and waste is collected on a day-to-day basis. So, and people are also segregating because it's mandated. At least here, I know, the person, the people, the vehicle which comes to collect the waste will not be happy if your waste is segregated. So it is something which is happening. But when I go back to a rural setup like the school, there isn't a waste management system in terms of especially dealing with plastic waste in place, because they were probably not used to plastic waste until this whole package stuff came into the
Scam, yeah.
so now you do have a plastic strewn around the place. You probably will not find other waste because they have other ways of dealing with it. Either it goes to the farm or it goes to the, it is fed to the cattle, and it does degrade. But the waste which stands out, even in the rural setup, is largely the plastic waste. And unfortunately, unlike in a rural setup, there isn't really a mechanism in terms of a system to deal with this waste which is generated. Now, talking about whether this is one aspect, the other aspect is in terms of the if you look at the age groups that we are working with. Now, whether it is a rural child or a urban child, children are extremely sensitive and sensible people. They are just an amazing age group to work with. They are so open to the idea. They're so open. You can really mold them very well. You can get them to engage with you. You can get them to involve in the actions. They're very, very proactive. And something which is more hands-on is something which children enjoy. And environmental education, the way we want to do it, the way we actually want to see environmental education, has to be a hands-on experiential learning. It cannot be textbook-oriented information which you are giving children. So because when the activities become hands-on and engaging, children generally are interested because it is something which is getting them to, it is something different from what they're always doing in the classroom setup. So that is also one aspect which I have, very, very clearly seen. And one more great thing about children is, we also try to engage children to go back and work with parents in a subtle way. So because we do have, of course, we all know that children are impressionable, and they can also create a great impact on their individual parents. Because parents are willing and open to listen to a child come. Even if your child comes in questions, my mom said this, and mom said probably something great about the environment. So the child will come back and communicate with you at home. Okay, ma'am said we should close the tap when we're not using it, or ma'am said we should segregate the waste. That information from a child's mouth is well received by the parent or the adult community. But if I, as an adult, go and communicate to another adult, don't do this, it's not really good for the environment, it probably is not well received because there's a big ego which comes in place. As adults, we tend to be able to, build in this factor around us, but children are not like that. So children are a great age group to work with, because one, they're able to work. Second, they're also able to communicate our work to parents and in a way influence the parent and adult community.
So maybe can you talk a bit about this work in Mysore itself, like maybe the process, so that like the audience who probably is doing something similar or who want to do something similar can maybe pick something like that you do. I know that you do walks, and then there are multiple other formats. So maybe that, how do you identify, how do you get these kids? Then once they come, how do you engage? What are some ways in which like you try to pass across this message which they can take it to the adults? So maybe a little bit just to give a visual picture to your audience about the work in the community.
True. So actually, before I actually get into the work, I would also like to tell you that Mysore is a very interesting city, because Mysore does have, we are doing a lot of birding here in terms of our work with Aranya Outreach. Bird walks and nature walks is one of the important aspects by which we are reaching out to people. So the city also provides us with a lot of spaces. We have good number of tanks. We have 5 large tanks. We also have the Chamundi Hills. Those who know Mysore will know about Chamundi Hills. It's a It's a reserve forest under the Karnataka Forest Department. So we do have good species of birds. Apart from birds, in the Chamundi Hill vicinity, we also have a lot of bird species in the five large tanks. We have other tanks also, but 5 of them are large tanks. And then we also have a lot of to and fro movement between Chamundi Hills to the different lakes. We also have the Kaveri River, which is not very far away. So we have the reservoir, the Krishnaraj Sagar reservoir, which is the dam, a dam in the reservoir across the river, which is again is not very far away. We also have 1 or 2 other rivers which are in close proximity. So on the whole, there is a lot of very good environmental conditions around the city, which have also promoted the diversity of bird species within the city, and there is also a lot of exchange which is possible. Plus, we also get a good number of wintering bird species from different areas across the country and globally also. So that what this has done is it has created a community. It has created a community which is kind of interested. It has because it is also provide people come to these lakes for walks. Some of them observe, some do photography, some do bird watching. So it is keeping people are interested in a way is what is one advantage which is there. Plus, we also have Rangantittu, a bird sanctuary, which is kind of close to the city, and that's the other thing. So what we have been able to do is we have been able to take children to these spaces, and we don't. The way we work is we reach the space and people reach there too. So sometimes it's a trek which we have a walk which we have open to a larger group. A larger group in the sense we don't preferably we like to limit our group size to like a few individuals so that it's easy for them to also understand what where the space that they are coming to, and also not cause disturbance to the space, because that is also extremely important. So we walk on this we walk a small area. We do bird watching. We do talk about the importance of the space in terms of the wetland. So how a wetland should be, unlike some of the restoration which is happening to wetlands today. In the name of restoration, it's not an ecological restoration. So if it is not ecologically restored, again you have a space which is not very friendly to the birds or other wildlife which is dependent on these lakes and tanks. So we talk to them about the importance of the ecological space, about the habitat which these lakes are providing to different types of species, and what species might use which part of the lake. So just kind of talk to them about all that. We also talk to them about how there has been a change in the way these lakes and tanks have been perceived from when they were created to now. So one of the lake which one of the tanks that we work with is close to 200 years old. So why it was created at that point of time, what was the purpose it served, and how the tank is today, and why it is deteriorating. So what is our role in kind of helping not deteriorate this, the space. So that is also the kind of talking we do with children. We also children and adults. So we also normally carry a spot scope along with us. A spot scope is something which you can view birds with. We also have binoculars, and we provide children the opportunity to view through the spot scope as well as the binoculars. We do carry bird identification books. So the idea is not to get children to start rattling off names of birds. We let them know birds are, what their names are, and why they are named that way. But the idea is not to get them to become what should I say, scholars in naming birds. That's not the idea. The idea is just to get them to develop a very intimate relationship with the nature that we are dependent on. So what we feel is that when we are able to when they are actually visualized through the spot scope, the bird, when you see a bird just like that and you actually visualize it through a spot scope, their reactions are amazing, Tarun. It's like they've never seen it up close, so they don't know how beautiful it is. They do not know the vivid feathers. They don't realize, the beauty of that particular bird which is standing in front of them, and that is an amazing reaction. So once you're able to, develop that connect. So all we are trying to do is we are trying to develop a connect with this wetland, and it cannot be possible only by talking about birds. It is a holistic understanding of the place. It is why this place is important, why the history about the place to talk to them about, and what they should be doing to help conserve the space. We also talk to them about, say, some of these tanks have issues of water hyacinth today, and what is water hyacinth and why it is, proliferating, and maybe how they can talk about it, and help in action which will ensure that this maybe it is sewage getting into the place. So these are the problems which we kind of make them aware about, and also introduce them to the different species of birds. Sometimes we get to see we get to see other stuff apart from birds. We do get to see a soft-shelled turtle maybe, or sometimes we get to see snakes, the freshwater snakes, and it's an amazing experience for children to be able to relate to something. And some of them are like, we have lived in the city for so many years, but we have never come to this tank. So we also get people like that who say we have lived in the city for so many years, but we have never visited this tank and we have never understood. So getting them to the space is helping them to connect to a very important aspect of their own city, getting them to understand that this is a very important space, and this space is extremely important for us to survive in future. We also, last year we were lucky how the tank was extremely full of water, and it was overflowing. It was overflowing with water because there was a lot of rain. So we also get them to understand how the tank is important for us to get good supply of groundwater. So that's also the connection. We try and interconnect things for them. So that is what we also try to do apart from just merely bird watching.
Okay, I think that's a very incredible and brave attempt to and that is something that you said, that it's in a way advantage that Mysore is endowed naturally with so much nature. So in a way, it might be helpful to create this interconnectedness. But I also agree. Like, I remember we had met somebody near the Hoskas Fort at some point. The person who's been living in that place for 20 years, and the person said that they didn't know that this Hoskas pond has been in Delhi for more than 500 years. So, so that's,
Yeah.
I think that kind of awareness is very critical. So what you are doing definitely is like creating these interfaces between young children, as well as, maybe I'm assuming that adults who come with
Yeah.
them, who also probably understand and see this interconnectedness of our species with the nature around us. So some of it may be a one-time, maybe it's not the same people who come over and over again, but are you also seeing that? How do you think of it as a community? That these are the people who have realized that understanding some of these things are important.
Yeah.
But are you realizing that how you can maybe create a cohesive community, so that like you have them, that these are the people who will be there if you want to do something else. So like a sense of community through these people.
So we do
Maybe
have, I mean, we may have the same people, or we may not have the same people coming back. And we also don't go to only one tank. We do our sessions in multiple places across the city. That is one thing that we do. Apart from that, we also have, we also work in association with another organization, which is called the Mysore Science Foundation. And they also get us, they get us in touch with schools to go and work in the schools, or they get us the groups to an identified tank that we really want to do a bird watching session in, and we do that. So they are also there. Plus, we have other organizations in Mysore. We have the Mysore Nature. It is an organization which has been working with again monitoring different wildlife, especially birds in the city for many years now. So we have documented data from work which has been done by bird watchers in the past for the last many years in the city of Mysore. They have been documenting species, not just within the city, even like, in the district and a little beyond. So different species are monitored and different the data is collected. Apart from that, we by ourselves also have been what should I say? We have a WhatsApp which we do try to post information about either important events or important work that we have been doing. Apart from our WhatsApp group, we do have a Facebook page. And on our Facebook page also, we do keep sharing, information about our nature walks and stuff like that. And we will have, sometimes we do get inquiries that in case, in future when you do have a walk like this, can you intimate us and we would like to join you. So that is another way. Apart from this, I also feel the fact that when we do these walks, we are not the only people on the lake, right? We're not the only people in the tank. So there are walkers. The place is full of people who are actually coming for their morning walks. And people sometimes stop to ask you what you're doing, or sometimes they just know what is happening doing this. So there is sometimes a sensitized group, but how many of that sensitized or the fact that this is happening is there, that sensitivity is there. We also have been able to collect people for other kind of work if the requirement is there. So there is that rapport building which is happening, and we will be able to get the support when it is required. So that is another thing, because we don't want to stand alone in this. It's not something which is possible be done alone. We would like to build linkages with others, like I did mention a couple of organizations to you, and that support is extremely important.
Maybe one thing that, like, I have just few more questions that I wanted to ask, but if at all there is a anecdote, or because a large part of your audience and the people that you're trying to engage with are children, any memories or recollections where as part of your outreach activities as Aranya, children took something as a learning and were able to, which in a way transformed their, understanding of the nature, or like even if it led to a really small, aha moment, or
yeah, I mean those, like I was mentioning to you, when actually see the learning that you're talking about is a more long-term experience.
Sure,
so like I also mentioned to you in the beginning, environmental education is experiential, and it requires to bring about a behavioral change. So that is another aspect that we are trying to address. We also do, apart from these nature walks, we do sessions in schools. We also do conduct camps and workshops. But we are trying to now associate with schools, so that we are able to do a little more long-term kind of an impact. Okay. These are things which require. So again, like I'm stressing back on, if you want to change for the environment, we have to change our behaviors, and behaviors change over time. Behaviors do not change. Okay, I'm going to start changing my behavior today. It is an effort. So to be able to consolidate their effort, we also want to be doing that. So the nature walk sometimes is a very interesting way of. It is for them an aha moment. I may not be able to pick up one aha moment for you, but for individuals, it is an aha moment, because some of them
thought about it.
Get into this, may not get into nature education. Everybody cannot get into nature education or start talking about wildlife, but become conscious of their actions, become conscious of their, it starts to get them to start thinking. So even the fact that, this, they're not even thinking about it. So just imagine people haven't visited a lake. You also gave an example. Now that they know this lake exists, tomorrow they will stand by it with us. So I would also like to tell you, like, we did have experiences like where we had this particular tank that I'm talking to you about was thrown up for restoration work. Was one like they wanted to restore it, and it was not an ecological restoration. So we as a team were part of the larger group which fought for the ecological restoration of the tank. We were also backed by the technical experts, and we made sure that the proposed activities did not come up, and the lake was they the tank was left the way it is just now, because like I also specified, it's important to have a good habitat for the bird species to come. And so that was one effort which was called Kukarali Ulsi, and it was a lot of people had participated in it along with us, and we were instrumental in making sure that things worked. Another example was where there is a green patch in the city, and there was a proposed helipad which they were proposing in this green patch, and so we actually started an online petition, and um, we were able to get 72,000 votes.
Oh, wow.
Against the helipad, and the helipad was scrapped finally. So why are we able to gather this? Why we were able to gather the support is, yes, there is a very, like I said, a huge community of people in the city itself who are pro-environment. There is also this support we have been able to gather through the different, by creating awareness. We have a group, set of people who are kind of aware, yes, okay, we can do something. So that support is also. We were also able to gather for another instance. There was the Bandipur National Park is not too far away from Mysore, so there was a lot of pressure to remove the night ban. Right now, there's a ban on the movement of traffic, through the national park, and so they wanted to remove the night ban so vehicles could move like through the night, and that becomes very dangerous for the nocturnal species. So we again, like a lot of people together, protested, and we made our voice heard. We also put across a memorandum, and which was sent across to the central government that we do not want this night ban to be lifted, and it worked. So these are examples. Unless we are engaging people with the city, unless we are helping them understand the importance of these spaces within the city, and unless we are getting them to become conscious of the importance of the space by creating that engagement, we will not be able to gather support for any such activity in the future also. So all this is also kind of helping us out. We are not the only ones. We are just one part in the larger picture. But then it having support of people who have been along with you or who have understood what you're doing, and helping build support for the larger movement. The larger movement is where we can actually create an impact. And we have also been able to create the impact in 2 to 3 instances. So that is a good thing which has worked for us.
Thanks. I think that sharing these examples actually holds out so much hope for so many of our cities, and it also, I think, like some of the other guests that we have had, it goes on to show that having somebody, and as you said, it's part of a larger movement and it's part of a larger force that exists in the city. But if there is a way in which this force and this thinking is manifested, then people know that how to rally behind it. And I think that's what you and a lot of others in Mysore are doing. So I think I just want to congratulate you on that.
It's not just me. I'd like to make it clear that we are a group of friends.
Yes,
and we are all pursuing this as a passion. So Aranya Outreach is was created because we were all passionate about the environment. We were all passionate about what we're doing. And we also bring this out in the treks that we conduct. We also do a lot of treks uh, around the city or places a little far away. And when we go for treks, we make sure, like you gave that example of the Himalayan thing when we started talking. So when we move out for a trek, we make sure people have carried an empty box, so that they are able to, we are able to carry the packaged food in the box. And when you carry a box from home, you're not going to throw it away. You will bring it back. So this is an important thing that we are doing. Even if it's a day trek or it's an overnight stay, we make sure that people are carrying a bottle of water. They are carrying their boxes so that we can carry, we go to the place, we get food packaged, and then we move on. But we are not creating packaged waste at the through the trek or the destination that you want to reach as part of the trek and back. So that is another very conscious effort on our part when we organize these treks.
I think one thing I wanted to ask, and I think you referred to it at some time back, which was about trying to make environmental education as part of the curriculum in schools to make it a longer term thing. And we've all known that there have been efforts at a more centralized level to talk about environmental education. But this kind of gives, I wanted to just check from you that what are the possibilities and what is the potential for organizations to actually talk about environmental education at a more decentralized level? Like what would be some of your, your learnings or your message to those who probably want to talk about environmental education? Because of course, like the local ecosystem, the environment is very different in different places. So having a more homogeneous, centralized kind of environmental education paradigm, even though it might tick a lot of boxes, might not be very customized to your surroundings. So if it was to be, say, if there is a group like yours and multiple passionate individuals like you in a smaller town, and they want to think about making environmental education a mainstay of education, not an extracurricular, but part of the curriculum, how can they think about it?
Yeah, so first of all, you should have capacity in terms of you should be able to understand what is running in the school system, and you should also be able to understand what you want to talk about. So when we talk about, especially when I work with the curriculum, you have to link a lot of skill. You can't just go to a school and say, I want to do environmental education, because they have 101 other things to do. And you have to be able to package it across to them, that what you're doing is going to be beneficial to the children. It's going to get them to understand skills. And certainly environmental education is an area which helps you get a lot of skills, because it helps if you work with them on a long-term basis. A program, a one-day nature walk or a one-day trek will probably give you a different set of understanding, a different set of skills. But actually skills in terms of critical thinking, or in terms of capacity building, or in terms of addressing problem solving, these are different skills which we associate with environmental education, and also sustainability. These factors, the whole education sustainable development thing, all this will come in if you are able to build your program along with what the schools want. So it should not become a burden for them. They will. It should not remain extracurricular, because again, it is something which which is treated separately. So if you have the time, you'll do it. If you don't have the time, you will not do it. So where possible, if it can be linked to the curriculum, so that the teacher is teaching it in the classroom as part of his or her subject area. Again, how they're teaching, whether they're teaching it as a concept or whether they're teaching it across as a hands-on activity, will help us create a difference. Also, if it is extracurricular, how long are you able to drive this? Are you able to link it to some kind of club activity or something like that, where you at least have, if not the entire school community, you at least have 30 children or 50 children who are part of your club who are sensitized, and having even that many numbers is going to create some influence on the impact. So that is another aspect. So working with the schools, we also have to probably keep in mind timeline. We have to keep in mind when children are free. So you should in terms of, they have their own set of exam schedules, they have their own set of holiday schedules. So you have to keep all that in mind when we are planning activities with the school. What you would like to also, what you want to work with. I mean, instead of uh, enforcing an area of work to the school, we have to work with the school to understand what is the problem area, and then be able to build your work around that area. I meant like in terms of, is it biodiversity? Is it waste? Is it water? Or what is it? So it may be a thematic approach that you adopt, but at the theme or the area that you identify to work on should be done in association with the school, so that they are able to visualize the benefit. So if you're able to show them the benefit, that will happen when they start working with you. If the schools are able to visualize the benefit of what you are able to achieve with them and the students, it may be monetary gains sometimes, because it will happen if you are able to work with them. And also they're able to project to them what are the different types of skills which children are able to imbibe by working with you. It is a great way of getting yourself into the school. So that is one thing I feel. The other is sometimes one of the drawbacks may be money. So sometimes there is funding available to work with schools, but right now for us, like you said, most of our Aranya outreach activities are not charged for. None of our nature walks are charged. We do not, because people are reaching there, and we are also giving our time. It's personal time which is being given. So you have to be passionate about what you're doing. That is another very important aspect. But if something has to be driven through funds, then either is the school willing to contribute some amount for you to meet your basic minimal expenses, or are you able to get funding support through some organization or some the forest department or the pollution control board, or other organizations which are able to support your activities in these schools. So that is another aspect probably which will have to be looked at. And also the needs of the school. Like I said, if you do something random which is not benefiting them, then they may not understand, or they may not see the purpose of working with you. So the identification of the needs is also an important aspect which we need to look at when we are working. I'm pretty sure we can do. So there might be other stuff that it's not difficult. There might be other stuff, like we are able to manage as of now. We have not taken any funds from anyone. We just put in, like I said, our time, and we contribute for. We don't obviously charge for. We are just moving to a location. If I go birdwatching somewhere, I will use my vehicle to some extent. So I'm not going to charge for any such thing. So people are reaching there by themselves. We're not organizing transportation. They reach by themselves. So that's the model we have kind of worked out, and people join you and stuff like that.
No, because the reason I asked that, because like we know that there are multiple such organizations who are at this interface, and they would really, I think from what you just mentioned, they will benefit a lot in terms of seeing that this is possible. And as you said, that you're already doing it as a passion project, and there are so many more in so many different parts of the country who and this talk can actually serve as an example for them to see that this is a possibility. So that's why I wanted you to kind of bring this aspect out, that it is a possibility, and you just have to put the right skills and the right intent in place. So,
and the approach also.
Yes.
So the way you approach that problem or the school or the work is also going to be extremely important.
If you wanted to give one message to organizations that are working like this across India, what would that message be? And we can close with that.
Yes, I would like to say two things. One is, definitely we should not give up on what we think is possible, because if we work, uh, we will be able to bring about a change. So we have to be able to put across ourselves to bring about that change. One is that aspect. The second is we have to be persistent with our activities. If we just do it as a one time, if I do one bird watching session and then do nothing for the next 1 year, I'm not going to be able to create an impact. So whether it is a bird watching session or whether it's a nature walk or an activity in the school, all these activities have to be, there has to be a frequency, there has to be a persistence on how we are doing work, and that also is something which is extremely important. So two things, I think. One is persistence of the activity, and second is the fact, the belief that we can actually make a difference. So both of these things are extremely important.
Great. I think that this conversation has been really enriching, and you gave us a sneak preview in the incredible effort that you're taking in Mysore. I've been to Mysore twice, and I've seen the rich diversity and the nature that surrounds it, and it's heartening to know that there's someone who, along with a large group of people, is there to care for it. And many congratulations to you on your efforts, and wishing you all the best. And if you were to if you were to look for, if there was say one or two or three things that you were to look for support from the larger ecosystem that exists, that you talked about curriculums and about maybe support through the education, the way the education policy is, but if what is it that will make your work easier? Like, funding is one side, but the enabling ecosystem, what would those things be? Because that is also something that we just want to put out from the various people that come, because
support from people, Tarun. I mean, I think very consciously we have to increase our engagement. We have to think about, we do so many functions at home. We go out to the market to purchase. So can we start very sensibly thinking about even products at home that we use, whether it is soap or a toilet cleaner, or how I'm packed, what kind of packaging products I'm bringing home. So this very sensitized decision making from people in terms of decision making, in terms of the different aspects that I mentioned, but a more sensitized decision, keeping the environment in mind, not keeping just money in mind. See, because I would like to say one thing here, is that when we have a bank balance, we do tend to spend. When we have lesser money in our bank, or a little lesser money on hand, we do tend to hold back and understand where we can cut out, where we can save, so that we are able to hold back that money. And for a time where I might require it most. So why do not we treat our environment in the same way? Because the environment, our Earth, is ultimately the only bank we have for all the natural resources, for everything that we are dependent upon: the water, the soil, the air. It's even the petroleum which is driving our vehicles. So everything is coming from this large bank, and because it is large doesn't mean you overspend it. That is what we are doing today. We have really overspent our resources. So we should really think in terms of how we are think of the earth in terms of a bank balance which needs to be maintained. And I think we will be able to consciously sensitize ourselves, our own decision making, and progress further. So everything is pro development today, and that is going to be very difficult.
that's such a wonderful and beautiful analogy. I think when I was in fourth grade, our principal had given us this topic to write an essay on, and maybe you will know the exact topic, but at that time, in 1994, talking about this was quite profound for our times, where he said that nature, we have not inherited nature from our ancestors. We have borrowed it from our future generations. And
Yeah.
your bank balance analogy like hits it right on, because I think so far we've been thinking that this is a FT that our forefathers have given us and we are reaping the dividends out of it. But the day we have to start making our own bank balances and draw from them, that's when we'll realize that how difficult it is. So
Yeah, because unfortunately humans only understand monetary gains. Every time you talk to people, they're talking about monetary gains. People are talking about their salaries. People will not talk about the environment. You want to go back to a place where for a holiday, you always want to go to a very nice destination, which is, serene and beautiful, but then you don't want to keep it beautiful. So you don't want to help to keep it beautiful. So that's where I think we are faltering. Uh, so that is
no, I think that's
definitely, there is another there is another very important thing, this whole thing about how many earths we have and how many it's in terms of the resources. There is this organization which talks about the way we are using resources today. It will take we are actually consuming 1.5 earths in a year's time. So in 1 year's time, it is 65 days. If we draw that analogy, the amount of resources the human species it's only the human species, because the others are very sustainable. All species are very sustainable. Whatever waste they are producing is utilized back in the nature. They're not producing plastics which don't go anywhere. So that is, even if you see this, there's another very interesting thing which I like from this this Walt Disney movie. What is it called? The one which has Mowgli. Can you name it for me?
Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, yeah. So if you go back to Jungle Book, there is the new one. There is one particular scene where the Balu has asked Mowgli to harvest honey. Collect as much honey as possible, and he would store it in his cave. He would store it, and I would keep it like for as long as I want to eat it. And there is Bagheera who says that that's not the way animals live.
Yeah.
Because so they are more sustainable. They only will, even if it's an animal which is going to sustain, say, for hibernate, they will only eat how much is required for the hibernation. They will not keep accumulating stuff. And that's what we are doing.
3 winters.
We are just accumulating and producing waste, which is not getting degraded in the environment, and it's creating a lot of problems for us as well as the hundreds of species which inhabit the planet. So that's basically the problem. So we have to gather support for the planet.
I think more and more of our talks are making this very clear that we need more support from people. And I hope that so many of these efforts go a long way in creating that muscle, the civic muscle, the I think more than that, like the mindsets. And
very true.
Again, congratulations to you and best wishes.